Dyson.
Thank you very much, Vince. And Vince, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I'm so pleased to be here today, and I'm very appreciative of all you, the public, that have joined us today from across the 2 regional districts. Thank you for your participation in this very important workshop. The preliminary design for the Regional Organics Compost Project is an absolutely critical initiative for the Comox Strathcona Waste Management Service, and we're very pleased to be at the stage to share it with you and receive your input today. Our team are speaking to you from Courtenay on the traditional and unceded territory of the Comox First Nation. The Regional Organics Compost Project covers the territories of the Wawikam Nation, the Wawikam First Nation, Homolko First Nation, and the Comox First Nation. And these are the First Nations that the province has asked us to engage with throughout this process. Let's start out by explaining a little bit about the Comox Strathcona Waste Management Service, or CSWM, and how this project will serve our region in the years ahead. The boundary is large, and we are challenged with managing the waste of several municipalities from both urban and remote areas, as remote as Zabalas, Tassis, Gold River, the various different electoral areas throughout that include many of our Gulf Islands. The service is operated by staff from the Comox Valley Regional District, and our board is comprised of directors from both the CVRD, Comox Valley Regional District, and Strathcona. They compose 23 members that we report to, and they set our policy. This slide illustrates the location of our landfills, including the Campbell River Waste Management Centre, which is slated for closure in 2022. It will then become a transfer station, and waste from Campbell River and surrounding region will be transported to the Comox Valley by truck. Conversely, organics collected from the Comox Valley will then be hauled back to the Regional Organics Compost Facility that is proposed at the Campbell River Waste Management Centre. The Regional Organics Compost Project will divert food and yard waste from 30,000 homes in Campbell River, Comox, Courtenay, and Cumberland, and turn it into finished compost for both agricultural and landscaping purposes within our region. It will be an asset for our region. The compost will be processed and sold, ensuring that economic and environmental benefits remain within our communities. The facility, its operations and design, incorporates best management practices, minimizing impacts to neighbors and protecting the environment. The Regional Organics Compost Project will divert food and yard waste, as I mentioned, and be turned into a viable product. Highly impactful for our taxpayers are the cost savings that can be realized by removing organics from the waste stream. We will spend $28 million on landfills in the next 17 years if we do not improve our diversion efforts, and this is our best means of improving those efforts. Early in 2020, we reached out to the community to gather input that would help inform the design and operations of this project. We heard what you had to say, and we incorporated your feedback into our design. I'm going to hand it off to Cole now. He will take you through what is top of mind in terms of those issues that you brought forward, as well as what is responsible for us to develop and manage this facility. Thank you again for your participation today. We look forward to your questions and input, and we encourage you to share the information of this workshop with your fellow citizens. The advantage to this kind of workshop is it will be available online. Your questions and our answers will be available for others. Again, thank you very much for your time. And Cole, please carry on.
Thank you, Russell. Today, I'm going to walk you through the design of the transfer station at the Comox Valley Waste Management Center, as well as the design of the compost facility at the Campbell River Waste Management Center. For the purpose of today's presentation, we're going to touch on the top issues identified by the community. Our design addresses a number of other issues, such as noise, traffic, and lighting, so don't hesitate to reach out if you are interested in something we haven't covered. An organic transfer station will be constructed at the regional landfill located in Cumberland. By 2022, when the compost facility is up and running, the landfill in Campbell River will be closed and waste will be transferred by truck to Cumberland. These trailers will then be loaded up with organics from Courtenay, Comox, and Cumberland on the return trip, maximizing trucking efficiencies. This map illustrates the location of the compost facility adjacent to the landfill, about 12 kilometers outside of Campbell River. The site, called Block J, is a 19-hectare in size and is zoned for heavy industrial use, with specific zoning for composting. In October 2019, the Agricultural Land Commission approved approximately 6 hectares of the site for non-farm use to be used for the compost facility. This area is outlined here in green. The vegetation you see on the remainder of the site will remain undeveloped. The site is initially sized to process 14,500 tons of organic waste. As diversion efforts increase in the future and commercial and multifamily sectors come online, the facility will be able to expand in the current cleared area to process up to 29,000 tons of organics. The image is the general site layout for the compost facility at the Campbell River Waste Management Center on Block J. Labeled as number 6 in this is the first step in the process where the active composting happens. Active composting is the point at which the majority of odors are produced. Commercial trucks will arrive and be unloaded in the enclosed facility. The compost piles will be aerated and use compost covers to remove a majority of the odors produced during the composting process. A biofilter will treat the air from the primary compost building and remove any remaining odors, labeled number 1 on the site layout. The surfaces in this primary building are concrete, and any water that comes in contact with the compost, we call leachate, will be captured and stored in holding tanks, labeled number 5. The leachate is then able to be recycled for pre-wetting the compost to ensure proper moisture content. Absolutely no leachate will be discharged to the environment, and all unprocessed material will be stored inside to control odors. Once the primary compost process is complete after 3 weeks, the product will be transferred to the second phase in the process, where the product is allowed to further mature. The secondary compost building is covered and protected from the elements, labeled number 2 on the site layout. Compost will be stored under gore covers to further control any remaining odors. The building is also concrete floored, so to ensure that all leachate is captured. This phase will take an additional 3 weeks. Compost screening, labeled number 3, is the last phase in the process and involves the removal of larger woody debris from the finished compost. Any larger woody debris removed goes back to the beginning stage of the composting process to begin the cycle again. The finished compost will be stored in the covered building labeled number 4 and will be the point of access for purchase of the product. Stormwater from the central courtyard will be collected in a lined holding pond labeled number 7, where it will be aerated and the sediment will be removed. The resulting treated stormwater will be discharged into an unlined pond and re-infiltrated into the ground, labeled number 8. Water use on site will be managed carefully and will not have an impact on groundwater quality or supply. Okay. The photo on the left shows the extensive groundwater monitoring wells around the Campbell River Waste Management Center, which are sampled 4 times per year. The photo on the right shows a similar fabric compost building, which controls stormwater as well as paved surfaces and a lined pond, ensuring impacted water does not enter the environment. The facility is a highly regulated site by the British Columbia Ministry of Environment and Climate Change Strategy. The CSWM service has an extensive annual water monitoring program in place to adhere to testing protocols laid out by the ministry to provide an understanding of groundwater quality. Additional monitoring wells are planned as part of the project. Testing is done quarterly and reported to the ministry. The annual summary of groundwater monitoring reports are available on the CSWM website. The photo attached is a similar compost facility with aerated static piles using gore compost covers within an enclosed building. The gore covers will remove odors during the composting process. Gore covers have been successfully used for the pilot composting project at the Comox Valley Waste Management Center for the past number of years. The receiving and processing of organic waste will take place daily within a fully enclosed building. Air within this building will be captured through an HVAC system and then treated using a biofilter, which will remove any remaining odors. BC Ministry of Environment and Climate Change Strategy administers and regulates air quality issues, including odor issues under the authority of the Environmental Management Act, will be required to adhere to these policies as well as odor nuisance bylaws. Odor modeling will be completed using worst case scenarios to ensure that there'll be no impacts to surrounding residents. Attached is a bar graph showing odor released using open composting in blue, which is not the process that we are using. By using GORE covers, 90 to 95% of the odor is captured, and any remaining odors will be treated using the biofilter. The attached photo shows how GORE covers are installed on the compost piles. The daily processing of organic material indoors minimizes odors and helps control rodents and pests. Once the material is placed into an active compost pile, temperatures will reach between 50 to 60 degrees Celsius for several days and is undesirable and inhospitable environment for rodents and pests. The pest control plan will also be an important part of the facility operations. The material is also moved frequently, reducing opportunities for animals to establish refuge. The facility will be located within the current cleared area of the land shown here. The cleared area around the perimeter of the facility will be fenced, preventing larger wildlife from entering the site. All delivery of compost feedstock and active composting will occur indoors to prevent birds and wildlife from being attracted. The wooded area you see here will be kept around the perimeter of the facility to protect natural habitat, as well as mitigate visual impacts. To conclude, the marker in green is where we currently are in our project schedule. Our planning and preliminary design phase is complete. And once we have shared our design with the public, we'll seek to obtain regulatory approvals. We expect to break ground on construction this fall, 2021, and public education will begin in 2022. This is the time we'll work with municipalities to share information about what we can dispose of as food waste and the details around the curbside pickup. By fall 2022, we are targeting to have our facility fully operational with curbside collection implemented by the year end. Thank you, and I look forward to any questions.
Thank you for that overview and summary of some of the key elements, Cole. We're now in the Q&A period. I'm going to stop the screen sharing so that people can look on the screen and interact with the speakers as we respond to questions. The chat box is open. One person has already posted a question. We'll go to that next, but let me encourage the attendees to use it to ask any follow-up questions or any additional topics that you'd like to cover, and we'll get the resource people to respond as best they can. So the first question is from Amy Baskin, and it says, what is the distance to the nearest neighbor of the pilot compost project?
The site is 300 meters from the property boundary of the closest resident and approximately 450 meters to the resident's house.
Okay, if there's a follow-up question, Amy, go ahead and type it in. The next question is from Debbie Howard. Will pickup be available in the regional district?
Pickup isn't currently planned for the regional district areas. There is a plan for implementing curbside pickup for garbage and yard waste, or seasonal yard waste and recycling, but not a regular organics.
Thank you. From Mike Nestor, will this facility be able to accept, in quotes, biodegradable plastics?
The plan right now is not to include plastics for composting, as these cause a lot more contaminants for the process, but further education and public outreach will be included in 2022 when we're.
Thank you. The next question is, again, from Amy. Do you have an example of any other facility to have neighbors less than 250 meters away, particularly ones with small children that could potentially be affected by the carcinogenic emissions released during the composting process? So I think there's a couple things to address there. in that question? So the first question is directly about other facilities that might be located less than 250 meters away.
Yeah, there's a number of facilities. Abbotsford has 50, that we're modeling this off of, has approximately 50 neighbors within 100 meters adjacent to a small airport and residents. There's also in Peterborough, Ontario, and also Saskatchewan has a new one going in. And for emissions, we're committed to the safe operation of the facility. The design is meeting and exceeding all environmental regulations. The gore cover system will remove all odor contaminants during the composting process, and a biofilter will be a secondary measure to remove any further contaminants.
Great. Christiane, I see a question from John Peter. You might want to tap in a response just to John on his question because he missed a bit of the beginning. Amy's other question raised the issue of risks to small children potentially being affected by any carcinogenic emissions released during the composting process. As a layperson, is that a concern that you've addressed or considered?
We're following all the best management practices for the compost facility regarding odor emissions, and we're going above and beyond any requirements from the current regulations, and we have no concerns.
Okay, John Ackroyd has asked, will I be able to drive in to leave garden waste?
The garden waste will be accepted, yard waste will be accepted at the Campbell River Waste Management Center and the Comox Valley Waste Management Center for residents. Only commercial drop-off will be for the commingled organics.
Okay, and I can see two things from Leona Adams. First, I believe, and I haven't opened it, she's dropped a PDF. I think it's a measurement from block J to the nearest residence. And then down below, she says, I measured using Google, and it says 200 meters to the nearest residence. Please explain where you measured from to get the other number you quoted.
We're measuring from the biofilter overview of the block J to the property boundary, but we can follow up with Leona if she's wanting further.
And she's put her measurement as a PDF in the chat box, so you'll be able to see her measurement. Her image is there loaded already.
Yeah, we can follow up with Leona directly there.
Okay, and I'm hoping not to skip over anything, but I'm also hoping to group questions because they're coming in quickly now. Debbie Howard asks, is the leachate usable as a nutrient source, similar to compost tea, for example?
We are reusing the leachate in the facility, so we will be recycling it, and it is beneficial for the input to ensure the correct moisture content. So it's all reusable and it is beneficial in the compost process.
This next question goes a little bit outside the bounds of this project, but I'm sure you'll have some knowledge. A Spooner writes, I appreciate that full waste trucks are going from Campbell River to Cumberland, then returning full of organics, but this is still a lot of emissions. Is there a plan to offset or change those emissions or change the fleet over time? And if you don't know, you can always get back to him, right? Him or her.
Yeah, with Campbell River landfill closing and no further landfill space there, those waste trucks are coming to the regional landfill in Comox Valley. And so best efficient use of trucking is to backhaul these empty trucks with organics. The Comox Valley is carbon neutral and purchases carbon credits for the act of transporting.
Thank you very much. Angela Spooner also mentioned, what is the lifespan of the Cumberland landfill? She might have missed it in the presentation. And does taking organics away increase the timeline? So let's recover that ground.
Yes, removing organics is twofold beneficial. It's adding additional lifespan. Approximately 30% of waste surveyed at our landfills is organics. And so this can definitely increase our lifespan. And it also eliminates methane production, which is a harmful greenhouse gas. So it's a twofold benefit by removing these organics. The approximate lifespan, we're midway through cell 1 and we're permitted up to cell 3 currently with additional space on that landfill. But we are permitted for about an additional 20 years of landfill space.
So I encourage more questions to come in the chat box. We only have 3 or so left. Next, a comment from Jonathan Line. Super exciting. Thank you for the presentation. Sounds like a good plan. You'll be a model for other communities in BC. Next, Andrew Sullivan asks, was dewatering considered at the transfer station to reduce transportation costs and the number of trips required?
It was reviewed, but with a commingled product, we're not hitting weight limits with yard waste and organics. When you're just transferring organics, you do hit thresholds for weight transfer, but with a commingled system, we're not going to be hitting thresholds for the weight of the walking floor vehicles heading back, and there's an excess of waste transfer coming south rather than organics going north.
Okay, again, encourage people to use the chat box for additional questions. The last one I have right now is from Leona Adams. What percentage of plant feedstock will there be going in compared to other feedstocks?
This will really depend on residential buy-in and seasonality. There's different times that it's in spring and fall there that landscaping really starts booming, that it's higher in yard waste than food waste. But in our pilot project, we have a consistent probably 50 to 75% of yard waste, which is sufficient for our system.
Thank you. Harrison Brown asks, for transporting organics from Cumberland to Campbell River, are the same trucks used, or will specific trailers be used to haul the organics to prevent cross-contamination of waste with the organic waste?
The trucks will be cleaned in between uses. They're steel lined, the garbage is bagged, and they'll have a quick washout prior to transferring.
Thank you. That's the end of the questions that I can see. I'm really hoping I didn't miss anyone. I tried to group what I could, and we do have time for more questions. Cam has done a great job on answering every single one so far. Thanks, Cam. Amy Baskin asks, how will the public access the compost? Will they be entering Block J for pickup, or will it be delivered, or?
We'll be looking that through we'll be putting out an operational contract early in 2022 and looking at the operation of the sale of the compost. It will be stored in that final covered building, and that will be the point of access, whether it's bulk loaded onto walking floors or open for smaller scale residential. It's yet to be determined, but it will be through Block J.
Okay, Leona has asked some follow-up questions. I'm going to flip her order. She meant to ask what would be the fruit and vegetable percentage as well.
I would have to run through the exact tonnage, what they've assumed. I don't have that off the top of my head. I can follow up with that, Leona.
Thanks, Cam. There's a question about what operations would be outside or at least open to the outside, since you've described the two covered buildings. What operations are open to the outside, to nature? So
the secondary compost building is a covered but open-ended building, but using gore covers for odor control. The screening is in the central courtyard, which is open but fully paved to control any stormwater.
Thanks, Cole. And sorry, I called you Cam. That's my son's name. Right. I went into auto mode there. Pardon me. A question now about drinking water. Will the employees of your plant be drinking from a well, as I have to, as I live downhill from the plant? So I think that's concerns about drinking water and might relate to your groundwater analysis earlier.
Yeah, groundwater is monitored consistently on there. We will have a well for process water, but the drinking water will probably be a bottled water system.
Okay, that's the end of the questions. We do have more time. I'm going to go back and share the screen talk about the, again, the same screen, talk about the closing steps, or just share a little bit more information. And leave the floor open. I'll keep watching for additional questions, okay? So at this point, we're going to let you know that we're going to be posting the video of this and the Q&A summary to the website as linked there, as shown there. We'll also be able to have others on the team and Cole respond to any emails or follow-up questions or phone requests that you have, and the email address is there as well. Of course, the detailed design process will continue based on the preliminary design, but moving it ahead. And then altogether, this information will be packaged and submitted to the BC Ministry of Environment and Climate Change Strategy to support the necessary regulatory applications. So again, we appreciate the feedback. One last thing before we go. Oh, there's other questions coming. One more question. Please explain the fire suppression plan, given yard waste is part of the feedstocks.
For sure. So the design carefully monitors and controls the amount of air, temperature, moisture, and the pile size during the composting process, which are important factors in fire prevention. Facilities operating gore cover systems, according to the design and O&M, have not had any fires related to them. Through best management practices, the risk of fire is significantly reduced. By processing yard waste immediately, because it's a commingled feedstock, we're processing it immediately and it's going into the compost bunkers. That eliminates any fire concerns. Other compost facilities that stockpile large amounts of yard waste or wood waste can have fire concerns when those get out of control.
Thank you. And Mike Nestor has said, to clarify, there are no plans to accept biodegradable plastics at the beginning, but this may change after a public education campaign. Is the expected temperature high enough to make sure the plastics degrade, ?
The process is quick in the gore cover system or any commercial composting system, and biodegradable plastic isn't recommended, and we won't be we'll be working on the public communication, but this won't be, currently it won't be allowed in our system, and I don't think it will be in the future.
Thank you. And so again, we have these links and email addresses for the people to reach out. We're going to close. We can stay open and answer additional questions, but there is a last activity, which is a second poll, which will get underway now. Again, a very quick one that helps us know how to reach you. So I think we'll start that now. So if you could tell us about this, there will be another question in just a second that just came in. Christiane, I'm assuming everyone can see this. You don't have to say, you don't have to hit click share results, do you?
No, we can see it.
Great, thank you. So we need 7 more people to tell us. And in the meantime, the question that came in is, if we're not accepting the biodegradable plastic, can the CVRD clarify this so that businesses don't use biodegradable plastics?
Yes, that'll be part of the public engagement plan that will start in the fall and carry out into the spring regarding businesses and residents on biodegradable plastic.
Thank you. So we do have more questions coming in, which is great. Leona Adams says, you suggested that the Abbotsford compost facility would be one to compare with. My research so far is that they have had a fire. Would you please research this? So thank you for that note, Leona. Karen King asks, how will any contaminated waste that comes from trucks be handled and sorted?
Yeah, contamination is always a problem with organic facilities, but the #1 piece is at public education. There'll be a number of areas that we have points of visual time to remove, and it'll be at the transfer station when commercial trucks drop off, or also in the primary building where the waste is dropped off on the floor and the operators are there to inspect loads, and then prior to shredding and then placing in the composting bins. So there's a number of steps for looking for contamination.
Thank you. We've finished the poll. The top source of information or connection with this process was Facebook, with 44% of the 18 respondents saying that that's how they heard about this event. So that helps us. I'll just wait a few more moments on any more questions. Here's another one. I asked about drinking water. How can you protect me as a neighbor? And if you won't drink the water, why should I? Catherine Conkin.
The CSWM took over the landfill, which is a historic landfill that's unlined. As part of our continued environmental, we're closing that landfill next year, which will improve groundwater quality in this area. As part of the design, we wouldn't be allowed to have a drinking well that close to the footprint of the landfill.
Okay, well, I appreciate everyone's time today, the respondents and the participants. We're running another one of these tomorrow and look forward to more participation. And is there anything else? Oh, well, we do have another comment. Leona Adams has said, my research Abbotsford facility told me orally is that odor is at 750 parts per million. I imagine that's what that is. I'll speak to another neighbor soon. Would you please research this? And another comment from Catherine Conkin, if the water line is extended, we would have safe water to drink. Adriel asks, is tomorrow's presentation a repeat of this one? Yes, it is. It's a revisit of the same material, so people have different time options for participating.
That's on Thursday.
Oh, I'm sorry, Thursday.
Thursday night.
Okay, 2 mistakes by me. Third strike, I'll be out. But there we go. That's it for comments. Leona says, I am saying, 750 meters. Thank you. I'm sorry that I didn't know the proper measurement.
Yeah, we can talk further on all those comments, Leona.
Christian's put the proper time and the link to the website in the chat box so that everyone has access to that. And I won't rush anyone since we have time. If there's any remaining questions, we're happy to answer them.
Hey, Vince, it's Mark here. I wouldn't mind just commenting a little bit further on Catherine's question about water quality and groundwater concerns. And just to say that that the regional district is doing a lot to protect groundwater. Like Cole mentioned, the monitoring work that is ongoing that has existed for years around the current landfill, plus the closure plans for the landfill, which will mitigate all rainwater entering the waste. But more specifically to this organics project, I want it to be understood that we won't be putting any water into the ground that doesn't meet the requirements for discharge to ground. So all of the water that we produce that may have come in contact with organics will be treated on site and will be discharged to the stormwater management pond, but only discharged if it meets the requirements for discharge to ground. So there won't be anything happening as part of this organics project that increases contamination in the groundwater.
Well, Mark, as you provided that overview, a question came in from Todd Blasicki saying, can you explain the systems and plans you have to prevent wastewater leakage to groundwater? I think what you said did touch directly on that, but do you have anything else to say in regards to that question?
Yeah, I could. I mean, this is separate from the organics project. But, you know, right beside where we're putting this organics project, we have a historical landfill. It's an attenuating landfill, which means that water passes through the waste and does enter the groundwater. These historical landfills were common practice and have been around for a very long time. But in the next 2 years or so, we'll be closing this landfill. We'll be installing an impervious liner over top of the entire mound of waste and preventing any any rainwater from entering the waste and making its way through to the groundwater. And this method of closure significantly reduces, almost eliminates the water entering the groundwater in the future. So we are taking great steps to reduce the amount of leachate that enters the ground. And as Cole stated, we also have our extensive groundwater monitoring system, and those results are all shown on our website. And you can see that that there's very little contamination leaving this site into the groundwater.
Thank you. Christiane has provided a link to information about the landfill closure process, etc. Leona Adams had a quick comment. I would prefer odor is actually airborne emissions. Plant debris includes toluene and benzene. I don't know if Cole has a response, but there was also a thank you from Cynthia Zerkwitz, and I haven't seen anything else beyond that. Okay, we've got a record of this now. This will be part of the recording and documentation of the public consultations. Oh, again, every time a question rolls in, that's great. Annie Baskin, will you please confirm, you said earlier odor emissions will be 0% at the property border?
We'll be doing an odor modeling study to ensure that there's no impacts to any neighboring properties. I believe the odor model uses one odor unit at a property boundary, which is very low.
Happy to take any more questions. Well, on behalf of the whole team, I'll just like to say thank you to all the attendees, and we appreciate your input very much. So you have information about follow-ups and additional questions, and I think we have a couple things you wrote down, Cole, to get back to people on, but we answered the bulk of the questions today. Another question, Harrison Brown, is there a remediation plan in place for when this organic facility shuts down?
The intention with this facility is it wouldn't shut down because it's part of the waste management plan, and diverting organics from the landfill is a strategic plan that we need to do to ensure environmental compliance for landfill gas generation and also extend our landfill lives. So this will be a permanent facility.
Leona Adams asks, what is the pumping rate for fire suppression? Will there be pond or water storage?
We'll be working with the City of Campbell River and the Campbell River Fire Department on those development permits. There'll be a storage site for water on site, as well as our lined pond, which is able to store water, but we'll be working directly with the City of Campbell River for that.
Okay, I think it's time to close the session. Thanks, everyone, and we look forward to being in touch over the next little while. Thanks again.